They were the kings of luxury real estate. Million-dollar listings, oceanfront penthouses, deals closed in penthouse suites and champagne-soaked parties. To the outside world, the Alexander brothers were untouchable. Tal, Oren, and Alon were young, successful, and connected. The kind of men who sold homes to celebrities and hosted rooftop after-parties with the ultra-elite. But beneath the image of wealth and power, prosecutors say there was something darker, something sick. Federal charges now accuse the Alexander brothers of rape, sexual assault, and running a trafficking operation that spanned nearly 2 decades. Over 60 women have come forward with horrifying stories of being lured, drugged, and violated. Stories that paint a portrait of abuse so widespread, so carefully hidden, it went unchecked for years. This isn't a scandal, this is a system, one allegedly built on manipulation, privilege, and silence. And now, that system is finally cracking. Today on Underworld Exposé, we break down the full timeline of the Alexander brothers' rise to power, their double lives behind closed doors, and the wave of victims now coming forward to expose them. This is the kind of story that reminds us, monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they live in penthouses and wear designer suits. Before we get into it, subscribe to Underworld Exposé if you haven't already. We cover real crime stories the powerful don't want you to hear, and we do it with truth, depth, and zero apologies. The Alexander brothers were rising stars, not in Hollywood or politics, but in an industry just as ruthless, high-end real estate. Tal and Oren Alexander built their empire by selling the impossible dream. $30 million penthouses, $80 million estates, beachfront mansions dripping in marble, gold, and exclusivity. Their names were synonymous with luxury listings and elite clientele. They weren't just agents, they were celebrity agents. If you were rich and famous and wanted a discreet mansion on Star Island or a panoramic penthouse in Tribeca, you called the Alexander team. The brothers were charismatic, stylish, always seen at the right clubs, the right events, beside the right people. Leonardo DiCaprio, Tommy Hilfiger, even royalty. They didn't just know them, they partied with them. They closed deals with them, and they turned that access into a brand. Partnered under Douglas Elliman, one of the biggest names in American real estate, Tal and Oren positioned themselves as the new generation of luxury agents, younger, sharper, social media savvy. They weren't just selling homes, they were selling a lifestyle. And business was booming. Between 2016 and 2022, the brothers closed billions in residential real estate deals. Their listings were often off-market, their clients ultra-private, and that's exactly how they liked it. In 2021, they made headlines again, this time for launching Official, their own independent luxury firm backed by Side Inc. The pitch? Modern, mobile, and media-driven. The firm quickly attracted top agents and massive listings in Miami, Manhattan, and LA. Articles gushed about them. Visionaries of the next luxury wave, masters of modern real estate. But behind the boardroom doors and million-dollar smiles, there was a third brother, Alon Alexander, quieter, less public, but just as connected. Alon made his name in event security and tech, founding companies that offered high-level protection and data monitoring for VIP clients and political events. He rubbed shoulders with politicians, ran security for international figures, and built systems that quietly watched everything. So now you had this, Tal and Oren controlling the image, Alon building the infrastructure, and together, the Alexander brothers had the money, the contacts, and the tools to move silently in elite circles, without raising red flags, until now. Subscribe to Underworld Exposé. We expose power and what people do when they think no one's watching. While the world saw glamour, high-rise deals, and Forbes features, behind the scenes, a much darker picture was forming. According to prosecutors and victim testimonies, the Alexander brothers were living 2 lives. One was built on champagne and commissions, the other, allegedly fueled by manipulation, exploitation, and unchecked abuse of power. The pattern didn't begin with one victim. It began with many, and it didn't happen in the shadows. It allegedly unfolded in mansions, hotel rooms, yachts, and private penthouses, places that were built to impress and built to isolate. At first, the invitations looked harmless, a casting call, a private event, a luxury networking mixer, and an opportunity to model for a new high-end brand. Young women, often in their early 20s, were approached in public or slid into via DM. The offer was always the same: connections, lifestyle, potential work. But according to court documents, the end result was something else entirely. Some victims said they were invited to exclusive gatherings with the brothers and were the only women present. Others claimed they were told they'd be meeting investors or brand reps, only to be brought to private residences where the mood shifted quickly from professional to predatory. Several women described being offered drinks, then blacking out, waking up in strange beds, naked, disoriented, and alone. One woman said she woke up to the sound of her own breathing, being played on a video loop on a nearby screen. It was a recording of her from the night before. Another said she was told it was just a party, but arrived to find only 2 men, a camera, and a bottle already opened. The most chilling thing about these stories, they're almost identical. Different women, different years, different cities, but the same methods, same setup, same outcomes, and the more women came forward, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't reckless behavior. This was a system, and it wasn't just happening in secret. It was happening in plain sight, while the brothers were being profiled in Architectural Digest, speaking on panels, and topping real estate leaderboards. According to victim statements, one of the most common tactics was psychological manipulation. Some were told it was their fault. Others were gaslit into believing they were overreacting, that the situation had been misunderstood or consensual. One woman even described being laughed at when she confronted one of the brothers about what happened. "He told me I should be grateful," she said, "grateful to be chosen." Some women reported attempts to file police reports, only to be talked out of it by people close to the brothers: doormen, PR teams, lawyers, associates who would call days later and say, "It's not worth ruining your life over this." It became clear the brothers had built a network of silence, powerful enough to discourage, polished enough to distract, and just intimidating enough to make victims question themselves. Allegedly, even when women pushed for legal action, they were threatened with lawsuits or told they'd be destroyed by negative press. One woman, a model from Brazil, described how she was invited to a luxury event in the Hamptons. After a long day of photos and drinks, she was offered a guest house to sleep in. The next morning, she found her clothes folded neatly beside her and bruises she couldn't explain. When she confronted one of the brothers, she was told, "No one would believe you. Go enjoy your vacation." And so, she didn't speak, not until now. This wasn't just exploitation. This was calculated, structured, and deeply protected by status, silence, and society's reluctance to challenge men with money. If survivors didn't fight back, it started with a whisper, then a DM, then a Reddit thread, then finally a voice brave enough to go public. And when one voice spoke, others followed. Women began reaching out to each other, some from Miami, others from New York, some from cities as far away as London and Los Angeles. They had different backgrounds, different stories, different lives, but their experiences with the Alexander brothers were hauntingly similar. Many said they felt alone until they saw someone else say the words they'd buried for years. And when they realized they weren't the only one, they came forward, some through lawyers, some anonymously, some publicly, without fear. One woman, now in her early 30s, described how she met one of the brothers at an art gallery opening in Wynwood. They talked about travel, photography, fashion. He offered to connect her to some people in the industry. That night, she was invited to what she thought was a post-event dinner with other creatives. But when she arrived, it was just the brother, alone in a luxury apartment. She remembers bits and pieces: a drink, a compliment, a haze, then waking up hours later, sore, half-dressed, and confused. Her calls went unanswered. When she went to the police, she was told that without physical evidence, nothing could be done. She was devastated, but not surprised. It wasn't until years later, when she saw another woman's story in a social media thread, that she felt the strength to revisit her case. She contacted federal authorities, and she wasn't the only one. Over time, more than 60 women would submit testimony. Some detailed specific acts of rape. Others described druggings. Many spoke about being recorded without consent, A few claimed they were offered settlements, cash in exchange for silence. Others were told to keep quiet if you ever want to work in this city again. One former assistant even admitted under questioning that they were instructed to vet and schedule women for private events, under the guise of networking. Some were allegedly even flown in using company money, disguised as client outreach. According to leaked documents, one of the brothers kept a spreadsheet of women, labeled by city, appearance, and how compliant they were. Let that sink in. These weren't hookups. These were trophies, tracked, cataloged, managed. Some survivors have since formed a support network. They're working with federal prosecutors, trauma counselors, and victim advocacy groups to ensure no woman is left behind in this case. And through them, the FBI began building a timeline. Texts, photos, bank transfers, flight receipts, security logs, and perhaps most damning, video evidence pulled from seized devices during the raids. According to sources close to the investigation, one device alone had over 200 hours of video recordings, some featuring women clearly unconscious, others showing encounters the women never consented to, some unaware they were being filmed at all. One survivor, fighting back tears, told investigators, "It was never about sex. It was about control. They didn't want intimacy. They wanted to break you." Another said, "He told me, 'You're lucky I even let you in this place. Girls would kill to be here.' And I believed him. For a while, I actually believed him." These stories aren't isolated. They're not exaggerated. They're documented, corroborated, and they're piling up fast. Some women said they kept quiet for years because they thought no one would believe them. Others were scared, terrified of legal retaliation, media backlash, or being labeled a liar. But now, they have each other, and they have the truth. By the time the FBI moved in, the walls were already closing. The survivor testimonies were growing, the paper trail was thickening, and the myth of the Alexander brothers, the sleek, stylish, unstoppable power trio of Miami real estate, was starting to rot at the core. What happened next would blow it all wide open. It was March 2025 when the feds struck. A multi-agency task force, quietly assembled under the Department of Justice, launched coordinated raids on 3 different cities: Miami, New York, and Los Angeles, all at once. Each brother was targeted separately. Each home entered with a sealed warrant, backed by grand jury evidence. And each raid revealed a disturbing amount of material. In Miami, agents stormed the brothers' waterfront estate in the early morning hours. Inside, they recovered luxury watches, encrypted laptops, burner phones, and a hidden safe containing multiple fake IDs, prescription narcotics, and flash drives labeled with women's initials. In New York, a penthouse unit in Tribeca was turned upside down. Investigators found what they called a media vault, a home server system backed up with video footage going back nearly a decade. Some of the files, according to court records, showed clear, non-consensual recordings of sexual activity. In Los Angeles, the home of Alon Alexander revealed something more covert: contracts. Dozens of NDAs signed under duress, some dated as far back as 2010. Victims later confirmed they were forced to sign them after threatening to go public. In total, more than 70 electronic devices were seized. Bank records, travel logs, and over 50 terabytes of digital evidence were secured, enough to build not just a case, but a legacy of abuse. That same day, Tal, Oren, and Alon Alexander were all arrested and flown to federal holding in New York City. Their mugshots, expressionless, exhausted, stripped of their designer wardrobes, were splashed across every news network within hours. The charges were staggering: rape, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and conspiracy to traffic, distribution of controlled substances, obstruction of justice, possession of unlawful surveillance equipment, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Each brother faced multiple counts, and federal prosecutors made it clear this was not casual misconduct. This was a criminal enterprise, predatory, strategic, and long overdue for exposure. In court, the defense came out swinging. High-powered attorneys were brought in. The brothers pleaded not guilty on all counts. Their lawyers claimed the accusations were the result of a coordinated smear campaign driven by jealousy, media hype, and opportunism. They argued that all alleged interactions were consensual and that the women were clout chasers trying to leverage the brothers' fame and fortune for revenge. But that strategy backfired fast. Within 48 hours of the arraignment, 3 more women came forward publicly, names, faces, and all, to challenge that narrative. One of them, a former concierge at a Manhattan hotel, said she witnessed women being escorted out of penthouse suites in a daze, half conscious, half clothed, and crying. Her testimony was supported by internal hotel security logs. Then came the evidence dump. In a preliminary hearing, prosecutors presented a 32-page timeline of communication between the brothers, including group chat messages referring to women as inventory, guests on the menu, and add her to the Thursday list. One line from Tal, allegedly sent in a private signal message, simply read, "Make sure the camera's rolling this time." The judge was visibly disturbed. The brothers' defense team immediately filed for a motion to suppress digital evidence, claiming illegal search and seizure. That motion is still pending, but the public damage is done. In the weeks following the arrest, Official, their real estate brand, collapsed. Douglas Elliman pulled all affiliate listings. Former clients severed ties, properties were delisted, contracts were frozen, and investors vanished. But while the fallout scorched their professional world, the legal storm is just beginning. The trial is expected to begin later this year, and prosecutors say more charges are possible, including indictments of other unnamed individuals linked to the alleged trafficking network. One federal official told the press, "This isn't just about 3 brothers. It's about a culture of silence, of entitlement, of unchecked privilege, and we are far from done. If you're still here, you're not just watching a true crime story. You're watching a system collapse in real time." Subscribe to Underworld Exposé, because this story isn't over, and neither is the fight for justice. The brothers are behind bars. Their empire is crumbling. But the damage left behind, that's only beginning to surface. Because while the media spotlight stays focused on Tal, Oren, and Alon, investigators say this case goes much deeper. And what they're uncovering might change the way we see power, privilege, and protection in elite social circles. In recent filings, federal prosecutors made a chilling claim. The Alexander brothers didn't act alone. In fact, they may have been the tip of the iceberg, part of a broader organized trafficking web operating in cities like Miami, New York, Los Angeles, and even overseas. According to internal DOJ memos leaked to investigative journalists, the FBI is now exploring associates, business partners, former assistants, and personal security who allegedly facilitated travel, recruitment, and cover-ups. Silent investors, names that haven't been made public yet, but are suspected of funding or benefiting from events tied to the trafficking. Tech enablers, people who help set up hidden surveillance, storage servers, and potentially distributed non-consensual footage. Victim suppressors, PR consultants, attorneys, and private threats used to silence women before stories could spread. One name, not yet confirmed by officials, is said to be a well-known media personality based in New York, who allegedly attended events where victims were present. Another associate allegedly offered victims large cash payouts and NDAs, all documented via WhatsApp chats and financial transfers now in FBI custody. If true, this case could lead to multiple high-profile indictments in the months ahead. Some legal analysts are already comparing it to Epstein's inner circle, but potentially bigger, more tech-enabled, and better hidden. What makes this scandal so terrifying is how well-oiled the machine appeared to be. Think about it. Women recruited through social circles, events, and social media, flown out using business accounts, housed in luxury rentals or hotels under pseudonyms, drugged, filmed, and intimidated, then either ghosted or threatened into silence. And all of this happening while the brothers were appearing on magazine covers and speaking at real estate conferences. How does something like this go on for nearly 20 years? The answer: money and silence. Because when you're worth tens of millions and your Rolodex includes celebrities, politicians, and billionaires, people don't ask questions. People look the other way. But not anymore. In the aftermath of the arrests, a wave of victims who once felt isolated are now finding each other. Several survivors have formed a private group chat, now 40+ strong, where they offer support, share legal updates, and coordinate with federal attorneys. Some of them are planning to speak together in court. Others are filing a joint civil suit, demanding damages for physical trauma, emotional abuse, and defamation. One woman told a journalist, "We were sold the fantasy of luxury, and we paid for it with our silence. Not anymore." Another, in a recent interview, said, "I'm done being ashamed. They should be ashamed. We're not hiding. We're standing together." The legal process will be long, brutal, public, and no outcome, no sentence, will undo what these women endured. But what it can do is set a precedent. That you can't shield abuse with influence. That NDAs aren't a license to violate. That money doesn't make you untouchable. Because for every case like this that makes headlines, there are dozens that don't. And this case, as horrifying as it is, might finally be the reckoning elite predators have feared for years. There's something uniquely horrifying about this story. Not just the crimes, not just the number of victims, but the fact that it all happened in front of us, and no one said a word. For years, the Alexander brothers were celebrated, admired, and envied. They weren't hiding in basements or dark alleys. They were on red carpets, in boardrooms, closing deals in penthouses while the women they allegedly violated were left questioning their reality. And that's what makes this case so important. Because it's a reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it smiles for the camera. Sometimes it signs $1 million contract. Sometimes it posts on Instagram about grind culture, while grinding women into silence behind closed doors. But the silence is over, thanks to the courage of survivors, many of whom were told they'd never be believed. The world is watching now. They turn whispers into movement, shame into strength, trauma into testimony. And while this case is far from over, one thing is already clear. They were never supposed to win. Their wealth was supposed to protect them. Their image was supposed to bury the truth. But you can't brand your way out of accountability forever. Not anymore. If this story shook you, don't just scroll past. Like this video, share it, comment. Because the more we talk about these cases, the fewer places predators have to hide. And if you're someone who's been hurt, silenced, or doubted, know this: you are not alone. You deserve to be heard, and your voice has power. Thank you for watching Underworld Exposé. Subscribe now to hear the stories the powerful don't want you to know, and help us keep exposing the truth, one case at a time. We'll see you in the next video.